still have our Super Eye Patch Wolf episode pins from like May.
Do we?
You do.
Oh, do I?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I guess I could say that. I don't know
Yeah,
what
I
else to
guess.
pin. Yeah, I should like maybe for like the next big event, the pineapple pizza stream. We'll pin that one.
Well, that's a good way to start off whenever we want to start off of it's the results are in and
I'm very disappointed. I'm very sad that like I know they exist, but the pineapple pizza fans did not roll up for that one. They just were like,
your existence has been denied.
They're just like, we've been surviving up until now. We're not coming out of the shadows, bro. They just did it.
They're like, no, you guys are fighting this one on your own.
Yeah, so I'm sad. I almost brought some pineapple pizza today on stream. If I hadn't eaten so much this whole week, probably would have.
I want to see if I have the meme downloaded. Because I have the copium meme downloaded on one of my devices. I think it's so funny.
Is it like with the oxygen mask?
Yeah, I love it. I think it's so funny. Because you got both sides. You got copium and hopium.
I never heard of hopium.
Hopium, I think, is like the light side of copium.
Yeah. Dark side, the light side.
Yeah, you get two sides. Yin and yang, copium, hopium. Everyone knows.
All right. So.
I have something saved in my. I have to load whatever that is. It's a certain series we were talking about before, blank copium. So I don't know what that means. Like just the ridiculousness of like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah. For everyone joining us, if you're also scratching your head, if you don't know what this is about, just we'll explain it. And if you have your own examples,
yes, please share
them.
Share with the class.
Yeah, we're gonna be having a lot of probably brain melting moments talking about this stuff.
I'm sending you the one because do you use what's it called, like OneDrive?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know how like sometimes like OneDrive just won't load the image thing, like the image preview. That's what's happening with mine.
Like, but did you just upload it?
No, it was like forever ago.
Oh, well, as long as it still downloads.
Yeah, wait, I'm sending this to you. We can bring this up if you want. This is really funny. And there's no spoilers, so it's my favorite. We might have to blur their name out. I'm send it to you on Twitter. I have this saved in my there's like copium for some reason.
Oh, hold on, let me see this. What?
Yeah.
This is so much.
Like, see, that's just like the example. That's the prime example.
Wow, that's some hardcore extreme. That's an extreme reaction there.
And I definitely saw that in like real time. Like I saw that in real time, and I was like,
just saw it all unfold, and you're like, "Yep, this is it.
This is the copium."
This is copium. All right. Let's see. The Chimera Ant arc is so good, or is good. Okay.
Is that the copium?
I don't know. That's what someone just said. Is that an example of copium?
I'm coming up with more mental examples the more that we've talked about this. And at first I was like, I really will only have one. And now it's just gotten to like a bunch.
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot. It's more of a recency bias thing. So like, you're probably like at the forefront of your mind is the recent stuff. But like, if you think back to all the popular anime, there's probably an instance of copium.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot probably in My Hero Academia, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll let you cover them.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Okay, so someone else brought it up. So everyone's just going to be taking shots at everything. So like everything that's good, every defense for why something is good or okay is a form of copium.
Yeah, because this isn't like a hot takes pod. This is just like, yeah, well, this is further out there. This isn't about these are things that are just nonsensical.
Yeah. So We will get to it, but I'm glad everyone seems to be on the same page. But thank you for everyone who's joining us so far.
Yeah, I think let's just kind of get started. I am sad about pineapple pizza not winning, but
the best first example, the best first copium example will be the results of the poll from last week.
Considering ending it all, really. Oh God, I don't know, man. I think we didn't get enough representation there, but I'll come back.
The sample size was not concrete enough, you know.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't accurate.
It was inaccurate. For everyone who didn't know and are just, you know, staying outside on this one. So last week we needed to know, like, pineapple on pizza, yay or nay, and the results are in, and it's 38% yay, 61% nay. So the numbers speak for themselves.
First of all, someone in the chat, pineapple does go on pizza. Where were you on the poll? Were you there? Did you represent? Why are you rolling up now? Colonel Panic says pineapple pizza lovers are massive copers. You can leave.
We are.
You may leave.
Are. See, that's the best example. Like,
same for the hard G GIF crowd.
I agree.
I don't. It's GIF.
Wait. Yeah, GIF. Yeah, because Tay says GIF every time. And I'm like, we're not talking about peanut butter.
Yeah.
Like, it's GIF, not
it's
GIF.
GIF. It's
not
GIF.
GIFies. GIF. And there'll be like the person who came up with it said it's this, this, and this. And it's like, I don't care. Just because you came up with it doesn't mean I have to listen to you.
Tom, don't knock banana on pizza, okay? I mean, I haven't tried it, but
someone said that in our response. They're like, actually, I would also put all of these fruits on pizza. And someone else was like, this is too far.
Panic says everyone on the pod says GIF except you. I think he's talking about you. Shocking.
No, everyone says GIF except Tay.
Oh.
Why would I say GIF? It sounds wrong.
He says everyone says GIF.
Yeah, I'm not saying GIF. I think other people don't say GIF.
Liking pineapple pizza isn't a form of copium. Oh, yeah. Were you on the poll? Did you represent?
I love it's like holding everyone accountable. You're like,
Maz, notice your Super Eye Patch Wolf shirt.
Yeah. So I was saying this before that, like, I think this makes me look like a super stan, but like, I think I got this shirt like back when he first came out with the merch. And I was like, you know, I actually like this design. I like the wolf. And then, I found it when I was doing like chores around the house, and I was like, well, this won't get stained. Oh, you know what it was? I was eating wings because it's NFL Sunday, and I was like, I'm not gonna, if I stain this shirt, you can't tell because it's like gray. Yeah. So it was perfect. And then I was like, okay, well, just keeping this on. Thank God I didn't wear it when he came on, right? That would look really creepy, right?
Yeah, probably. Imagine. No, if he comes on next time, we should just both have Super Eye Patch Wolf shirts on.
But yeah, can you imagine? Like in both colors? Because I think he had 2 colors for them.
Yeah, both colors.
What do you guys think? That's a question for chat. Do you guys think like if you're like coming on someone else's stream and they have like your merch and they're wearing it, is that like a cool thing or is that just really creepy? Like discuss if it's like a cool tribute, like, oh, like that's nice of them, or is it like, no, they're weird, run away, you know?
No, I think it gets creepy when you're like Super Eye Patch Wolf shirt and Super Eye Patch Wolf beanie.
Do they have those?
I don't know.
I'm looking it up.
And you're just like, hey, nice to meet you, man. I've only watched like 1 or 2 of your videos, and then clearly you haven't.
Yeah, it's like
it's a little more than that.
I don't think he's.
See, this is what happens when you don't stop pineapple on pizza, people. Next, we'll have kiwi and dragon fruit and other shit. Cope and seethe.
Cope and seethe.
Wow. Wow, Tom.
Speaking of merch, do we come out with just Weebs merch?
Yeah, eventually. Maz says, I thought of this. If you have him on again, just wear Giguk shirt.
Yeah. I was almost like, did you ever get a Giguk shirt? Or would you get a Giguk shirt? That's the question.
I don't know. If it's funny, like it's just like his face just on it.
What's the one of like anime's trash and stuff?
Oh yeah, I actually considered getting that one back in the day because that was really funny.
That one was like a good like subtle like if you know you know.
Yeah.
That one's like kind of cool. I'm down with like having like the iconic quotes on the shirts or the cool designs, like the Super Eye Patch Wolf logo.
It's weird but funny. I'd find it flattering but concerning since I don't sell merch.
Yeah. Hey, I didn't even know I had merch.
Panic says it's pronounced Jiguk.
Wait, can you imagine me having back on welcome back Jiguk, and then he's like,
and he's like, what the fuck did you just call me?
The fuck?
What's up?
He's like, we're not bros just because I've talked to you guys twice. Like,
what's up, Jarnt? All right, I think we should start.
We're already way too happy for this topic.
Yeah, we can't be happy.
No more happiness in LA.
All right, let's do this. Okay. Ready. Hold on. Cool. Welcome to the Just Weebs podcast. I am your host for this week, Onimaru, and I'm here with Shocking to talk about copium. You know, some people already asked me, like, what's copium? Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I kind of know, but I'm like, I don't have a lot of examples. So I'm like looking to Shah here, like, what is copium? How do we explain copium for the uninitiated?
You're the kind of like terminally online person who would know what copium means, and I'm like, yeah, I think I do, unfortunately. So I guess we have to go. Copium is probably a phrase. Well, if you're well balanced, you probably have not heard of that phrase. But if you've been online within the past year, you might have heard of copium, and you might be like, oh, that's a weird word. What does that mean? I guess like the historical background is, I think it started getting used a lot. It might have been created. I don't know. It started getting used a lot back in 2020. You know, almost a year ago, actually. Started getting used a lot after the 2020 election results came out that Biden won, and there was like a sizable amount of like Trump supporters who were convinced that, you know, in December and January, Trump would pull out the win somehow. They didn't have the answers for how Trump would get more votes after the election process. Mm-hmm. They just knew that like he was going to pull the 13D chess move and declare himself the winner somehow. So, and then everyone kind of dubbed it as like copium. Not everyone, like people online dubbed it copium because they're trying to cope with the loss by like, you know, like kind of breathing in, and like, you know how you breathe in like gas, like helium or like some kind of gas, like no one breathes in helium, but like, you know, you breathe that in. So it's like the image of the Pepe meme, like snorting
with the oxygen mask,
snorting that. So now it's been kind of like referred to casually as, you know, losing touch with reality, but convincing yourself that something that is unrealistic will happen, you know, through kind of like self-delusion, I'd say. Yeah. That's self-delusion in the form of like coming up with ridiculous excuses for why something will happen that will realistically not happen.
Yeah. So like copium started off like more a political kind of term in response to that, but now it's sort of like trickled down to, you know, video games, like different communities and fandoms where like people have this opinion to like pretty much they run laps to kind of justify something, whether it's
the mental gymnastics, you know. Yeah. It's existed forever, and it has like tons of names. You know, I'd say like jumping through hoops or like the mental gymnastics to convince yourself of something. But now we just have the funny word copium of like, you know, cope more, copium more. Like, so it's just like a new way of saying an old thing, but now we have a new funny way of saying it. And, you know, we've seen it in the anime community a decent amount. We've had it before the term was created, but now we've seen it used a lot more recently.
Yeah, so like I think I've seen it around, but like I feel like I don't know. There's one recent example, but what are like the biggest examples of copium that like copium are kind of just extreme rationalizations that you've seen, you know, in regards to anime? What are the ones that stick out in your mind?
I mean, it is the big one recently, just because it's been so big recently, is like the entire process of the Attack on Titan manga ending, especially like the last couple chapters, just like the way I've seen it be discussed in certain terms of like, there's one chapter to go, we have like 10 different to do things on the bullet list of like what needs to be accomplished. And like I've seen people before the chapter was dropped kind of say like, he's doing this, guys, he's doing all of this, like this is what's gonna happen, or like just some kind of like ridiculous explanations for what was going to happen. And then I think it's been kind of exacerbated because you had the first release of the last Attack on Titan chapter 139, and then they had the volume version, which was like had more pages, more context, like it had more stuff. So you have like certain, I'm not saying different drafts, but different releases of the same content. So you kind of got to re-experience everything over and over again. So then you have more room for speculation, more room for copium of like, well, these are the things I want him to fix. This is what he's going to do in the last draft. And then it's like, oh, is it better or worse? Is it the same? Yeah. And now you kind of have like endgame copium of they're going to fix these things in the anime, which is like, who knows?
Yeah, like they have very little evidence, but they're hoping or coping so much that they're grasping at straws at this point. But do you find like those examples? I guess that's an extreme example, and other examples. Like, do you find it to be a problem, or do you find it just funny?
I think it's just funny, but like it's really sad and like over in a meta sense. I think it's sad that, for the majority of people, because I did a poll back when the chapter was released, but like a few weeks after, I said like, what is your general impression of the chapter? And I think my 4 responses were, it's great, it's good but not great, or like it's bad but not series ruining, or it's series ruining. And like I didn't want a neutral pick because like, I don't want to know if you're neutral on the chapter. And I think the majority response I got from people, I'll try and look it up in a second, but the majority response I got was it's bad, but it's not series ruining for the last chapter. And I think that's really sad in a meta sense of like, so many people were looking forward to this for so long, myself included. Like everyone was really excited for this. It was kind of at the top of like discussion points for the whole community. It like really took the world by storm. And I think it's sad to see it go out in such a way. So like, I do feel bad for a lot of the people who were being like let down by the chapter. But I think in any context of like, kind of like jumping through hoops to try and convince yourself of like why something will happen that probably won't happen. I'm talking about before it even came out. I think that's kind of funny, no matter what the topic is, like no matter what it is, because like we've all been there at some point. Like I've talked myself through multiple hoops of like stuff I thought was happening. I actually have kind of spoilery example that I can't go into too much detail with, but like back when Haikyuu was publishing, there was like this section of chapters where like it completely threw everyone for a loop. Like nothing we'd seen before. Attack on Titan is used to plot twists. This was like a Haikyuu plot twist, and we're not used to that. And I was coping so hard. I was like, this is a dream. Like this entire segment is a dream. It's like this, none of this is happening. It's a simulation. We're in the Matrix. And it ended up being like, of course, like not a dream. This actually happened, but it worked out better in the long run. So like the end game was good, but in the moment, me and my friend Joey, like the DMs I was sending him of like, okay, this is a dream. It's going to go back to this. And this is why it's happening. Like absolute madman, like ridiculous stuff. I probably looked worse than anyone who was coping with the Attack on Titan last couple chapters. So we've all been there. There's no judgment, no disrespect. We've just all been there before.
Yeah, I think the problem with this, specifically with the Attack on Titan example, is that they're still not accepting the reality, and it just still keeps
Attack
going.
on Titan Requiem,
and they've made it a mission to make their own ending, which that's not great.
It's fine as fan fiction, but I think the way they some of them present it as like we're fixing the ending, or like this is the true ending that fans deserve. That's a bit condescending and insulting,
Yeah, but are there examples of copium where like people can't like accept like maybe it's not in regards to an ending, but like can't accept the actual like I don't know context or content of a certain arc or a certain character that might like be a certain way, and they kind of try to rationalize it as something else when textually it like there's all this evidence pointing to it, and then they're just like, no, it's this. I'm being very vague, but I'm just like trying to
I feel like
think of
there's
an
so
example.
many. I feel like there are a lot of characters that I could think of, but like I'm not sure. I can't think of one specifically because I know like I would think of so many examples like not under pressure, but I feel like there's just like you see a lot of like fan defense or discourse around someone, and you're like, this is just like not really adding up. Like this is just doesn't seem to add up. I think something I don't think this counts per se as copium, but you can tell there's like a bit of like weirdness. I don't know. It's like whenever I see in like Hunter x Hunter discourse, I see people talking about how like Jin is like the worst father of all time, like all time worst dad. Put him up with like Sho Tucker, all these people who have done like literally hurt their kids, hurt, killed, tortured, whatever, like all of these people. And they'll defend like Killua's dad, who like canonically tortured all of his kids as like their upbringing. Meanwhile, Jin just kind of like left gone with his aunt, which is like abandonment, but not necessarily like physically torturing or hurting him. And you'll still see people kind of like react as if he is on the same level as people torturing, killing, whatever their kids. And it's like, don't really think these two things line up, but that's like a bit more on the level of like, I think that's a bit more on the level of just like, the way I think of it is I think people have a lot more abandonment issues in life than they are getting tortured. So it's easier to like feel hurt by that.
Yeah.
So I think that's what they react to.
It's more relatable
strongly.
in that sense. But like, I get what you're saying, to put them in the pantheon of terrible dads that have tortured and done far worse things. It's like, it's not exactly the same.
Yeah.
You know, most of it is like Jing is a bad dad, but again, it's more on a realistic level. It's not to that like, you know, that level of evil, but also part of it is also like a joke. You know, it's like kind of like Goku's a bad dad, although Jing is kind of more directly a bad dad than Goku.
Yeah.
But
I say that like Jing is a bad dad, but like he's not necessarily a bad person based on like his accomplishments as a hunter. You know, he just like he completely failed at the dad role, but that doesn't necessarily make him like a bad human.
Yeah, like it kind of reminds me of like shows where they kind of whether it's female characters or male characters, they split up like, you know, the person as a daughter, as a mother, as a human being, and they might be great at these other things, like, oh, they're, you know, they're a great scientist or they're a great whatever, but they're not a great mother, or they failed in this area.
Yeah, exactly. It's like sometimes they shouldn't have taken on that role, but they might have like, you know, positive contributions outside. So like it's a bit different with that. I do think there is like specific character. I think the whole like, actually, I don't want to get into that one too much. I think to some degree, some of the discourse we see with the like, she's a 900-year-old vampire in a 10-year-old body.
Okay.
So like it's fair game. I think sometimes that gets a bit on the copium levels, but not necessarily like all the time. Like, you know, it's kind of a funny meme, but sometimes you see the way you see like, some people defend stuff.
It's like a funny meme at this point because of like how much to sometimes it's, you know, defended, and it's like, come on, man. But I get it. But I get like that gets to that copium level. But what about like when people like kind of project their own feelings onto a work to kind of interpret it a certain way when it's not really like actually what happened, but it's kind of how they see it that way, and then they just kind of like keep defending that is how it is, but they've sort of, you get what I'm saying? Or
I've seen that so many times where people are like, actually, well, this thing happened with me, so that's why this work is like that. And you're like, that doesn't really match up. Like, respect to you if that's what you connected with, but like, that's not actually what happened, like in the context, like in a literal sense. Do you have examples of that?
I feel like I'm trying to think of some examples regarding that. I'm like for example, I think it's really like a show that it's probably easy to do that with, although I don't know a specific example. I think it would be Nana because it's so like
Oh, you
close to
could see
like real
that.
life. So I could see people just really like projecting their
If
own
that was
feelings.
me, I would
Yeah,
have.
interpreting the
Yeah,
situation. But I'm
I
trying to
see that with
think of.
like.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, no. I think you could go with like Neon Genesis Evangelion too, of like
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
everyone with Shinji, where they're like, okay, like yeah, he's 14, depressed, and doesn't know how to pilot this scary robot to save the world in like 15 seconds. But if that was me, I would have done it because I'm built different, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I feel like Evangelion a lot of times is like it's easy to sort of like purposely misunderstand or misconstrue or sort of like miss the point because then you're just
Mm-hmm.
like, this kid sucks or he's not doing what he's like, what I would be doing at 14 or they like interpret it differently. But like Evangelion sometimes also gets like so abstract at some points that like it does lend itself to like different interpretations. There are just some that like completely miss the point.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm also looking in the chat here, and not anime, but Panic said the hardest I and an entire fan base ever coped was a Mass Effect 3 ending.
I've heard of that and how bad it was, but I forget why it's bad.
Yeah, I never got into the series because when I was interested in it, it was like still around Mass Effect 2, and then 3 came out, and then I was like, all right, never mind.
Yeah.
I didn't jump in.
Yeah.
Star Wars The Last Jedi, and I say that as someone who doesn't. Oh, okay, so Star Wars The Last Jedi is an example of like extreme copium.
Yeah, I heard that. I feel like the last three Star Wars films are kind of like they lead to a lot of copium, but like I just don't know why. I just don't know. I didn't see any of them, so I guess that's kind of weird. But like I just never really felt a need to see them.
You've seen none of the new trilogy?
No,
You're
I feel
good.
like that. Yeah, thanks. I thought it was a form of self care. Like I don't like it when people kind of like brag about not doing things because like sometimes it's kind of lame. Like when people brag about like how they're never gonna watch something as like a form of look how cool I am. But I just never felt compelled to watch the new Star Wars. Like
Yeah,
if you
I
want
mean,
to, that's good, but I'm good.
a friend told us recently, like, oh, I haven't watched Star Wars yet, and then we like freaked out. We're like, how have you not watched Star Wars? And then he was like, no, I mean the new trilogy. And I'm like, oh, okay, you're good, you're
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
You don't need to watch
Yeah.
it. You're set.
Yeah. Like that's when
'Cause-
you're like, yeah, I think I'm okay. I watched the
yeah,
old ones and the prequels because the prequels came out when I was a kid. Like I saw one in theaters, so I'm like,
same,
this is just Star Wars as I know it.
same. It was a fun time getting to experience it. Even though as a kid I didn't understand how bad it was to other people's.
Yeah.
So
I think there are some redeeming qualities to the prequels that I think like we all like low key agree with secretly, but the fun of making fun of them is too much to like really go into that.
I just found out recently, like my friend told me he knew this for a long time, but I just found out recently that Ewan McGregor, who played Obi-Wan in the prequels, like every time he was like doing the lightsabers, like in like filming, he would always make the sound as he was doing it because he was like really into it. So
That's
in the
so
actual
funny.
movie,
Oh my God.
they had to turn up the sound effects to cover up him making the sounds.
I love that. I think
that's
makes them-
amazing.
that's just good. That makes them good on its own. Like that,
Yeah.
it's good now.
Yeah. Let's see what else the chat says. Ship coping is astronomically high.
Oh, that's the one. That's the one where it gets kind of wild. That's where I've seen people really start like rejecting reality. And it's so like I don't know. I don't know. It's like
How do you feel about ships?
so
how's
I
that?
like ships a lot. I think they're really fun. I think it's fun when I think there's like good examples where it's like, you can appreciate the characters and their dynamics more because of ships. And I mean, there's also a difference between like canonical romances that are confirmed, like canonical couples, like they exist in the series, they're the kind of the point, or they're like a subplot of the point, like they exist canonically in the series. And then there's kind of like fandom shipping of like, hey, it would be cool if these guys got together, or like, the series does not allow them to exist as a couple, but if it did, here's how these two people would work. Like, I think that's a really fun thought exercise. I think it's a fun way to engage in a series. And I do think that like I've grown to love series because of shipping more, just because I think it helps me like think about the whole series as a whole more, and I kind of appreciate it more. Yeah. But there's like a difference between the two. And sometimes if you're like, so this ship that I enjoy thinking about, seeing fan art of, reading of, like theorizing whatever, that like thought exercise is not necessarily in the actual series. Like there's a difference, and sometimes you can't conflate the two, because it's like, maybe there are some hints here of that happening, but that doesn't mean it literally happened. And I see that with a lot of fandoms where it's like they have their one ship and it's being either like rejected or it's not being portrayed in the series, and then they freak out because they're like, yo, my ship is being like, they had this ship in the show and now they're not doing it. And you're like, okay, but that was like not real. Like that's just like not a thing.
I think that's the problem when they like get mad that it's not happening, when there was nothing, like no evidence, nothing setting up that ship. Sometimes those characters never even interacted.
Yeah.
And
but
then
in their head, it's like, this is a true romantic relationship. And it's like, and I think people sometimes go overboard on hating ships. Like, I think people really do go overboard on hating ship culture, because there's either the one side where, they just hate it in general. And it's kind of like, get over yourself. People are just going to interfere. They're going to engage in the fandom however way they want. Like, no one's telling you what to do. Don't tell them what to do. But then there's the other side of like, sometimes it's like some like subtle homophobia where they're like, oh, I hate these shippers. The shippers are ruining everything. And it's like, realistically, like if the people were really that invested, they're probably buying merchandise of your series and helping it succeed. So like, that's not bite the hand that feeds us kind of thing. But a lot of times I think that there's like a lot of toxicity more against shippers than the other way around. But I have seen some shippers that just seem to go like way crazy, and then they start sending the creators death threats for like no reason. Just gets kind of wild. So like,
yeah, I feel like, again, for the shippers, there's probably those one like few standout examples that have gone really extreme and have given like all of them a bad name, so people have gone overboard and hating them, but pretty much probably the rest of them aren't that extreme.
Like not to like diss other fandoms, because like you want to be self-critical of my own fandoms that I enjoy, just to show it's not like, not hating on specific series. But I remember hearing back when like Promare was still in theaters, when they were still doing showings of it, that they had this like viewing guide, so people would like start cheering at the screen as if it was like an idol event. So they had like cue cards for like what to say and when. And I'm not sure how widespread this was. Like it could have been 20 theaters doing this, or maybe 10, maybe even just one. But like I saw it and it was kind of like it was just like ridiculous stuff. And I think there was a lot of like shipping related things that they were chanting back at the screen. And that, I think that's a form of being just like way too deep into it. Cause like people are not paying $20 to go see a movie with you chanting in the background. Like stay home, do that. Like I remember that being something that was like, okay, this is when we've gone too far.
Unless that's part of the experience, unless that's the event,
but it was like not a formal, that was not
a formal
part of it. Yeah.
They do that with, I don't know if I guess they still do that with The Room. They like, people go to the theater to kind of like throw the spoon at the screen and like.
Oh, really?
Like I was reading it, like they made an experience, like it's such a cult thing that like they laugh at all the jokes. They do like a certain thing. It's all like part of the experience, but I'm pretty sure this isn't that. So
probably not. That sounds awesome though. That sounds like awesome copium.
Let's see. Crimson in the chat says, I don't mind shipping, but I don't do it much myself because I like seeing the dynamics between characters in question play out in the series alone, which itself can be engaging on its own. I agree with that. We all know Hachiman belongs with Iroha. Yeah, cope panic. Cope.
Cope harder.
I actually don't know much about Hollow Knight, so the Ultimate Copium.
A sequel or something? Because it's like that probably is a sequel or something.
I think, yeah. So the comment here is the Ultimate Copium is Hollow Knight players still thinking Silk Song is coming out. So I guess that's the sequel. Yeah. I felt that way about Kingdom Hearts for a few years, It
was just not coming out.
I was waiting for 3. It's like, and I felt that way about the last Ava movie for a few years too.
That's what I was thinking. It's weird because that was like a form of copium of like, it's coming out. And then like, no, it actually did come out. So
see, us Nana fans are mature enough to just we're not even hoping. We're just like, it comes out when it comes out. If it doesn't, we're good.
That's how you've achieved like inner peace when you become a fan of so many series on hiatus that you're like, there's no need for copium or hopium. I just exist in the present, and that's all that matters.
That sounds like a good meditation exercise.
Yeah.
T says in the chat, the only time I can think of shippers that were angry for justifiable reasons was in Voltron. I actually never checked out Voltron. Did you?
No, is this like? This
I heard it was
sounds like
good.
Was Voltron just actually like? So like when I hear Voltron, I think of like old Transformers. Honestly, like so I'm like, I just think of like older Transformers stuff, and I'm like, why? I feel like we're talking about Western cartoons, but I know we're not.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Was
it
it?
is
It was an
Western.
older cartoon.
It's no Western. The newer Voltron that was on Netflix. That had like 5
Okay,
seasons.
so I was half wrong and half right. But is it just like what's? Is it good? What is it?
Well, I never watched it, but it had like
Mhm.
5 seasons. It was sort of like how do I describe it? Because there's been like a lot of like anime inspired
Yeah, yeah,
shows that had to run on Netflix, kind of like Castlevania.
yeah, yeah.
So Voltron had its own like thing. I think some of it was like sent to Korea to be animated or something like that.
Okay.
But long story short, it did run for like 5 seasons, and I heard it was like really good, but I never actually got into it. So
What can they do? Who brought that up? Cipher? I guess Cipher.
oh
Can
yeah, let me see. That
oh no, not
was
Cipher.
no,
No, it
that
was
was
T. Can they bring up like a? I mean, like maybe spoil. I don't care that much, but maybe not spoiler. Like, why is it okay to be mad at the ships? What happened with the
yeah.
ships?
Elaborate, fill us in.
Unless
For
they,
us, we're curious. We don't know
yeah,
anything about it.
unless they
Uh,
mean like the physical ships and not the like literal ships. You know, like when people are like, "What's your favorite ship?" and then it's like, "Oh, I like Going
Here we
Merry."
go. Class Fact elaborates here and says Voltron got a remake by the studio that did Korra. See, I knew it was related to something.
Yeah,
Oh, Korra. That's a lot of copium.
that was some ship copium. Oh, wait a minute. Wait, do you remember? Okay, OG Avatar. Who was your ship? Because everyone has a
like
ship.
I got everything I wanted at the end of OG Avatar. I was happy.
Okay, so you were an Aang Katara shipper.
Yeah, I was happy with
Okay.
that. Were you
Okay.
not?
I was at the time because I didn't even really think about it. Like when I was watching it as like a kid, I was just like, yeah, like the ships are going. And then I kind of like came back to it like 10 years later, learning about how mad people were that like Zuko and Katara didn't get together.
Yeah.
And I rewatched it. Rewatched it multiple times, but like I rewatched it and I was like, I see the lines. I can see why people would be mad, but knowing how it ends up, I'm cool with it. But I could go either way on it.
Yeah, I mean, like when I first heard of that years later, I also was like, what's the whole thing with this ship? I never even saw this, whatever. And then again, I rewatched a few episodes, same thing. I'm like, oh, okay. They could have gone that way. It could have been interesting, but I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, okay. It has some merit.
Yeah, like I'm not against it. I could go either way in defending or criticizing either, but as it stands, I'm cool with how it played out.
Yeah, also, I do want to address Jamie Gidley in the chat says, no, the ultimate copium is a Song of Fire and Ice fans thinking Winds will ever hit. 10 years and still waiting. I am waiting.
Yeah, that's
it's going to come out. I hope.
I gotta believe.
I mean, I really don't care at this point, but like, I'd read it if it came out, if it ever came out. But I just say, listen, he's living his best life. He's prioritizing everything else. Happy. He's literally like every time someone asks Shaw to watch One Piece and she adds on a day, every time they ask him to bring out this fucking book, he's just like, oh, I got this other deal to do. I'm going to do that instead. So he's just adding it on.
If I was paid to watch One Piece the way he's paid to read the game, I would be watching One Piece 24/7, though, to be fair.
It's true. But he does write like 2,000, 3,000 page manuscripts. Yeah. And it does take him a while. T gives us context. To give context, people who were working on the show kind of baited fans into some ships, but then they never happened.
Okay, this happened with Gintama too, but like we knew they wouldn't happen, but we still hoped. That was a copium. I had a strong copium with some Gintama ships actually, but like the entire fandom is kind of like on the same page and agreeing that like at least like one of the ships, which is like actively like kind of explored. So it's not like us making it up. Like they have it as like a mini plot point. And we're like, nah, this needed to happen. Like immediate top one if it happens. Absolutely robbed. Like missed opportunity. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. But
man, you sound like it hurts.
It did hurt because like I didn't come up with this idea. They did. I was like, you started it. Like finish it through. Follow.
So it was actually in Gintama. Like Like this ship, you could see it happening
Yeah.
for real, or was it because
Yeah.
fans brought it up?
No, it was like a plot point.
Oh,
No. Well, it was
that
like a
sucks.
mini plot point. Like, I think we were all on the same level of like, this could go either way. We know that the focus is not on romance, and the mangaka Sorachi, he's like, I don't like writing romance. He still did it though, but like, I kind of knew like if a couple was getting together, it meant one of them was probably going to die. So like, he only kind of used like romance as like a source of like human conflict and tragedy in the series,
Yeah.
but like they could have been happy. You set it up. Like we know what you did. Like stop it. It was so terrible. Everyone knows.
That's like
Everyone
someone.
knows.
Yeah, that's like someone expecting romance out of Haikyuu.
Well, it was like in Haikyuu, like there's dead ass no romance. Like there's literally zero romance. Like they didn't have that in Gintama. Like one of the characters' feelings for another was like a plot point they explored. Like that was like a part of their character. They have confirmed it. Like it's in the show. So like there was a bit more reasonable.
Okay, it was more direct. It was more like it's as if they aborted it. It was like, all right, it might lead to this way, and it was like, nah, never mind.
And I'm not like super against it. Like Gintama is still a favorite, but I was like, what could have been?
Yeah, I mean, like I heard like. What do you think about this, actually, in regards to Nana? I don't think this is a big spoiler, but I was like, when I was reading it, I did hear some people feel like they were like a little queer baited with the whole Hachi and Nana dynamic early on that kind of fizzled out later. Like,
I don't know. I feel like I can.
Like, do you feel like that was actually a thing, or do you feel like nah?
I don't know because, like, I mean, for all we know, the ending that has never come out could be those two ending up together, them realizing they don't need these other relationships that have caused them so much pain because this relationship is the most important in their life. So for all we know, the end game, which I could reasonably see be the two Nanas reconciling at the end, could be them getting back together. So I think that's one of those cases where, like, you know, there's such a mess with everything. Like everything in the series is a mess. Like I don't think they're trying to bait us. They're just, you know, they're trying to live life and have some kind of natural progression. And it could have been Endgame.
I think we did talk about this, but yeah, okay. That makes
sense.
Is
that how you feel?
Yeah, I mean, like anything could happen. I don't feel like it did fizzle out. I just feel like life got in the way. So, you know, I feel like there's...
You know what did fizzle out? The actual manga, because there's no chapters being made. So that's where it's like
Good one.
It's up to say this one specific aspect fizzled out when the entire thing fizzled out. But that's where I kind of get in this, like in terms of shipping, I think there are a lot of times where people get really hung up on like the romantic nature of relationships instead of like how important the relationship is. And I think sometimes it's more important or more fulfilling to think about like, how important is this relationship in that character's life, romantic or not? You know, like with the two Nanas, it's clear that their relationship is what they value the most over every other relationship. They find the most meaning in their relationship. They care about each other the most. So like, even if they're romantic or not, this is their most important relationship. And I think that's cool to think about instead of the like, will they, won't they, and this manga that's been on hiatus for so long.
Panic is like, is this real-time cope?
It might be real-time cope.
Maybe. You're seeing it in action. We came here to discuss others coping, and we just ended up coping.
It wouldn't be fair to call people out for coping if you were not also coping.
I think we're all secretly coping. Panic did say, cannot wait for the Elden Ring cope. It's going to be nonsense, but it's going to get tens all around. That's, you know about Elden Ring, right?
Yeah. Does that mean, Panic, do you think that it's just going to not be like good or like the story won't be good and people are just going to give it a 10 because of who's working on it? Or do you think like, you know, what is the source of said cope?
In terms of back to like copium and like arguments and stuff like that, like what do you think, I guess, like in discourse and stuff, like when you're talking and stuff, like what makes a sound argument and when does that start to go off the rails? I guess does it have to do more with projecting or?
I think it comes into how do you defend something that to many people seems like a flaw and might not be a flaw to you, but you can recognize why it's a flaw to them and why you try. How do you reconcile this one element as like, it exists and it doesn't offend me, but like, that's why it is. This is why it exists. So going away from my usual example, since we talked about it a bit before, well, in the pre-show a bit. I'm going back to mine of, I hear a lot of complaints with Steins Gate, my favorite, for the character Ruka, not Rukia, that's Bleach. Luca, as like I've heard some people have complaints with them as like a portrayal of like a trans character. And I've heard everything from they're not supposed to be trans, they're supposed to be like a gay male who felt like the only way for their opinion, for their feelings for Okabe to be reciprocated would be to change their genders, because they just, Japan is very conservative. They're not very they're not welcoming of a lot of gay relationships. At least when Steins Gate came out back in 2009 and a bit ago, definitely was the case then, very not receptive to that. So I've heard that. I've heard that they're not really supposed to be a trans character. They're supposed to represent the I know it's definitely considered more offensive now, but they trap trope, so to speak. I think there's definitely another word for it, but I forget the exact one. I'll say cross-dresser, but fully recognizing that a lot of people consider trap to be offensive, and I'm not trying to use it offensively, but I know that that's just trying to identify it. But and then just all sorts of different defenses. I kind of feel like I probably have to read the visual novel to see it full in real time, but I do think that there is no intention of portraying them in a negative or detrimental way to trans individuals. I thought it was trying to be really there was an attempt to be really thoughtful and get in their head and get in that perspective, but I think it didn't really age well because it came out a bit ago, and a lot of social change has been very drastic. So there's just so many different ways I could see it happening. But while I've heard a lot of criticism for their character and their portrayal, I've also heard a lot of people identify with them who are trans, who are bi, who are different, people who are questioning their gender identity, just a lot of mismatch of opinions. So sometimes I see it's people will be well, how do you defend the problematic aspects? And I'm it's not really that black and white, but I guess some of that answers could be seeming I'm coping through it, because I do think it could be a bit better, but I'm still just kind of torn on what to make of it. But I appreciate what I think is the intent behind it, which was to be thoughtful and empathetic, even if that wasn't achieved to the best degree that it could be.
Yeah, and actually, one thing on that, I think a lot of it probably does come down to, like you said, the time period. It was, it's not super dated, but now maybe it might be a little dated, more than 10 years ago. And it's one of the top animes, so you still have new fans entering the medium that are experiencing it now for the first time. So to them, it's why is this like this?
Exactly.
But then also, in regards to what you said, what is your stance generally on in a show, kind of reconciling things that, might not be perfectly done well? I know you were just talking about this, but do you feel like you should take the time to think about it, or you should just be if I don't have an answer, I don't need to think about it, and then kind of leave it like that? Or do you feel more inclined to do that because it's your favorite, because it's so high up,
I think it's it's a combination of it wasn't an issue to me the first time I watched it, and then when I would talk to some people about it, they'd bring up their issue, and I was okay, it didn't bother me partially because I'm not in the same position as you, but also when I saw it the first time, this is how I interpreted it, and then it would lead down that way. I mean, I don't think I need to be hey guys, I like Steins Gate, but I swear I'm not I swear I'm not transphobic. I don't think I don't think you have to be that overt about it. Hopefully people are down for the conversation and don't if people are going to view you poorly, no matter what your favorite series is, I feel that's kind of a shut door conversation before it even happens. But if people are willing to have a conversation about it, I think it's totally fair to just say it didn't really bother me for these reasons, but I get why it bothers you. It's kind of what we were talking about with, I think Made in Abyss is another good one. We've talked about how uncomfortable the random I don't even know if they're jokes. It's comments. That's the weird thing to me. It's they'll just random comments of what's the Papa poll, the go-to, so unnecessary, kind of completely, you could kind of just completely remove that stuff from the content, from the series, and nothing of value would be lost.
Yeah.
But I think you brought up like, yeah, this is like really uncomfortable and I'm really uncomfortable by this and I don't know why they're doing it. And I was like, yeah, definitely understand. It didn't get me as much because I always kind of took it as like kids being uncomfortably authentic kids.
Yeah.
But I think there's a good room for like that to just not exist. Like they still feel like kids with and without the awkward comments.
Yeah, I mean, I was more on the camp with the with the TV series. Like I overlooked it, didn't really bother me. It was sort of like, oh, it gives more of an authentic feel to them being kids, whatever. It is a little whatever, but I moved on. The story was so good. But then in the movie, I couldn't overlook it.
Yeah.
I was just like, I don't know, man. This is way more in my face.
Yeah.
This is way more like, it makes me like think like, like, I don't know, like, why is this here? Like, it's a little much, but, and it could have been maybe the time I was watching it, maybe the time and place, maybe I'll rewatch it and I'll still be like, nope. But yeah.
If you can cope through them hard enough. But I think that's fair. Like, I think it's totally fair because it's so weird, but I don't know. I think it's a matter of trying to see like, how is this weird thing used? Like what was their intention behind it? Like the Made in Abyss thing, like I think they were trying to make them feel like authentic kids or like, I think that's what they were going for, as we can, this will be a comment later, but like, I don't really know the author's intention because like, I don't know them. We don't know them, but like, that's the perceived intention I got. They could probably do without them. Like they could probably be better without them, but like, yeah, I don't know. That one's just so weird.
I'm still gonna watch the sequel. Like I remember after finishing the movie, I still went to go wiki the manga because I'm just like, I need to know.
I need to know.
I need to know what's down in the abyss. T had asked earlier, what about the side of the gay shipping? People who hope characters are gay for the sake of representation. Not saying that as a bad thing, by the way. I think we did cover this a little earlier, right? Did we?
Kind of, yeah. I think it's
we touched on it.
I think it's like an unfortunate cope that like I think it's an unfortunate cope of their like probably not being enough, well, definitely not being enough representation that they kind of that people get attached to what they perceive to be representation. And then when that doesn't end up happening, then they're like let down by something that wasn't necessarily promised, but hinted at. And then it kind of becomes a whole mess. But I think it's totally fair to have those feelings. It just might not be totally fair to expect it to happen canonically, which is why I think it's so cool that you can do like fan shipping on the side and like engage in that aspect, even if it does or doesn't happen in the like actual series.
I didn't think of this then, but I do feel like some of the fans of Sound Euphonium are a bit justified with that Reina Kumiko ship, how it was handled in the third movie, Chikai no finale.
Yeah.
And like how they just suddenly like, which was closer to the novels, but then it just kind of sucked.
It's like a reflection of like the first season and first and second season both, but first season more so, where they like made their dynamic like really intimate and like seemingly romantic, very intense dynamic. So like, of course you're going to expect that. And then you find out, oh, wait a minute, the like novels they're adapting are a bit different. And then you're like, okay, well, what's going on? And I see people I don't know how, but like, I feel like people don't really hold the people who are let down. I don't think they hold the series accountable as much as they should, It seems like there's blame everywhere, but like, how about like the actual creators of the series for kind of establishing this dynamic that might not happen,
Yeah.
Because I always felt like weirded out in season 2 when like Reina's talking about her crush on the teacher. And I'm like, but like, no, I don't care about that. That's not a compelling plot point. We're here for you and Kumiko. Like, when is that happening? And then it's like, okay, I guess, okay, whatever. But
let me just address Muscart said in the chat, when fans start talking about the author's intentions when they have no way of knowing the author's intentions is when the coping becomes insane. When you're like speculating over the author.
Yeah, parasocial relationships are one hell of a drug. I see so much of it. Like I've seen a lot of it recently with just people like
But is it sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Is it really a parasocial relationship though, in terms of like an author? Because I could see it more with like, just with online, like, because you don't really see the author like face to face. You're kind of just reading his stuff through his work and kind of assuming like who he is.
Well, I think it counts because it's kind of like, you're assuming. Well, I was laughing because I thought you were going to say, "Is it really a relationship if they've never talked to you before?" And it's like, I thought you were going to say that, and I was like, "Good points." But no, I mean, I think it still counts because, like, the way I've seen some people like talk about certain creators, also just based off like interviews and certain things they've done, like panels, interviews, written work, like anything. They'll take like anything that they've said and they'll like perceive that as like the individual themselves, and they'll be like, yeah, this is what they believe in, this is what their values are. And it's like, you don't really know this person. I've seen a lot of stuff just in terms of like, this person did A, B, and C, therefore they're a good or a bad person. And like, it's kind of necessary, but tough to remind people that like, we don't actually know these people. Like, someone who made you feel good through their work is not necessarily a good person. Like,
yeah, it's true.
Something. And I think it gets really dangerous because people, not dangerous, actually dangerous, yeah. But it just gets really tough because it's like people prescribe these values to people they don't know just because they like their stuff. And then if they don't live up to their expectations, then they feel really let down. But like, none of this really existed in the first place. You kind of made it up. Like, you are kind of like, maybe it's hopium. Maybe this is the hopium instead of the copium, but like, you're hoping that they live up to that, but it's an unrealistic expectation.
Yeah, that's a tough thing because a lot of times, like, an author could write something that you really like, and now, especially now, where we've become more of a transparent era, once you find out like how they really are, and it doesn't match up to the work, it's like you're either disappointed or you have a hard time separating the work from the author, and it's like it's a whole other thing. But I think I have been guilty of doing that with Hideaki Anno, with his life and everything, because he documented so much of it. But usually now, like, if I try to like assume something, I try to just like look up like a quote or like actually see if it's like sourced, something that like he said. But even then, like, you can't really know for sure, because like, what's one quote versus like, a bunch of others, like what he actually thinks. And like, you can't just piece it all together unless you interviewed him and like legit asked him, but even then you don't fully know him.
I think it's also totally fair to still kind of like the persona behind the person who worked with it is, but like, I think it's also fair for them to just kind of like exist and not necessarily be a good person. As a Kanye West fan, I am used to the copium, the hopium, the everything, the like, Kanye has gone through like 20 different careers in one of like every different perspective. So like, I'm not really too concerned if Kanye West is a good person or not. I don't think that's something that is as important as like the work that he makes. And I think that's just kind of how I view creators as a whole. Like, I don't really care about the creators themselves as much as the work they make. And like, I don't want to support like creators who are like aggressively breaking the law. Like, I'm not looking for like the worst people out there. And I'm like, well, you made something, so like, you're good. But like, I'm not morality checking every creator of the work I'm
okay. So I have to ask you this because I recently talked about this with a friend. Would you go to a Chick-fil-A? Would you have their product?
Oh, I remember, because like back when, the Chick-fil-A thing, I think I did. So fun fact, I never actually went to Chick-fil-A that much because I didn't live near one. So I didn't grow up with it as much. But I did go to Chick-fil-A when they had their whole scandal. I think it's like funny how everyone was kind of like, Chick-fil-A is kind of homophobic, but it's a good.
I mean, like, I know people, well, that one friend and someone else that I talked to too, that just won't go to Chick-fil-A because of that moral thing.
Yeah.
They don't want to support
I think it's
it.
fair. Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think that's fair. I don't have an issue with it. But like, for me, I'm like, but the chicken sandwiches are good. I don't know. Exactly. Like, does that make me a bad person? I don't think so, but it's something to think about.
Yeah, I think it just has to be like a personal choice kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's like whatever you're comfortable with, I guess.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I get so torn on it too, because like, I don't know. Like, it's the whole like knowing how kind of like ridiculous J.K. Rowling is with everything. Do you still watch Harry Potter? And it's like, the way I think it's like, Harry Potter has been in my life like more than J.K. Rowling's most recent statements. And I never read Harry Potter because of J.K. Rowling. So it feels weird not to watch it because of her, even though like, I'm not going out of my way to support her. But like, if it's Harry Potter weekend and there's nothing else to watch, like, I'm probably watching Harry Potter.
Well, I think one, J.K. Rowling, obviously conjecture, but my speculation is she became crazy post Harry Potter success much later. Maybe she wasn't like that before. Who knows? Or maybe she always had those beliefs. I don't know her. But two, I think like the problem with the work is if at some point, like if Harry Potter very clearly, very directly became about her, then it's no longer Harry Potter. It's no longer a story. It's no longer a fictional world she's crafting. It's about her, and then that's
exactly. That's really true. I'm not reading what is it, the like Wild Beasts and whatever bullshit. Not checking that out. We're good.
In the chat, this is totally off topic, but is that a ping pong table behind Shaw? Ping pong stream when? That
would be great.
I'm down.
Ping pong tournament. The ping pong tournament.
I will lose, but I'm down for ping pong dark tournament saga.
Dark tournament arc? No, I think you'll do good. Don't doubt yourself.
I'll train.
You're gonna have to train for Jeopardy.
Yeah, the Made in Abyss mangaka is just very sus in general, says Muska Art in chat. I've heard that. And that's probably like, maybe that's why like I had kind of heard like murmurs of that susness, like way later, because I watched the series like early on, and then when I got around to the movie, I had that susness in the back of my mind, and I was just like,
inception of susness.
Why is this here? Is it what they're saying true?
Yeah.
Cypher says maybe fan fiction is the ultimate form of copium.
I think that's true. I think it can be true, but it's so funny because I've read fan fiction where it's been like obviously a copium of like ships that didn't happen, and then sometimes it's also like expanding the work that's on hiatus or will never continue, which is still copium. But like I've seen very interesting applications of fan fiction for better or worse.
Yeah, I mean, fan fiction is some type of copium. But it's a creative outlet,
I remember, this is like so embarrassing, but I remember when 50 Shades of Grey came out as like a thing, like a book when like girls would like go out and start buying it, and it was like a mainstream thing even before the movies came out. And I realized that like I read it as like the fan fiction for Twilight back when it was just Twilight fan fiction, and it was called Master of the Universe, I think. And and when I read it, it was like still bad, but it was also like significantly shorter. So I would like just say like, oh yeah, I read like 50 Shades of Grey. And they're like, and they would like ask me like, oh, like what about this part? And it was something that wasn't in the fan fiction, but was in the extended like novels. And I was like, oh shit, like they like I didn't read all of that. So but I didn't want to tell people I read the original Twilight fan fiction. Yeah. So I was like,
I mean, I don't know. I think I like read a few Ava fanfics back in the day, like when I was a lot younger, because of like stuff that didn't happen in the show, and I was like, all right. And I read some fanfics, and I'm like, yeah, that was coping.
I think it's always just like you want more of the original thing, and if there's no more of it, then you're like, okay, I see more. Yeah,
I feel like I'm trying to think of it like it could be coping, it could be something else, but every time I try to think of another example, I still think it's coping because you want more. It's like you're coping with a loss. Like you might have been satisfied with the show, satisfied with the ending, but the fact that you want more and can't deal with it, is a form of like coping it like for its loss.
Yeah, I don't know, like
unless you like really like the world and maybe the world building, you want to kind of set something in that similar world.
Well, I think this is the difference between just engaging in more like fan content and copium is like you need that self-delusion into thinking it's real. Like when you read fan fiction and you're like, okay, this is not literally Evangelion, this is Evangelion fan fiction. That's a big difference from this is the true Ava ending. This literally happens. Like this is what should have happened. This is like the canon content that should have existed. Like that's the difference is like when you're like, nope, this is the gospel. And you're like, nope, a 14-year-old wrote that on their computer. Like, that's not the same thing.
No, that 14-year-old was God breathed into him, divine inspiration, and he came up with the true title. It was a revelation. I'm kidding.
The Ava one really stand out for that one.
Class Fact said, all you need to know is that Kanye likes Akira, so he's based.
He is. I agree with his takes, too.
Was his latest album good, Shaw?
It was. Donda was good. I liked it.
Really? I heard the opposite.
That's what you. I don't know. It sounded like to me it was like a mix of like The Life is Pablo and Yeezus. So
Okay.
I think it was
Not
good.
super well versed, but I just heard like maybe it was like, did it have a polarizing kind of like some people loved it, some people did not, or has the consensus you've seen been really good?
I think I don't know. I've heard everything from. I've heard it's like a mid-tier Kanye album, which to most people I think is still a good album. But like, I don't know many people saying it's like the best Kanye album. But I don't think anyone's gonna say it's his worst album. Like, I don't know. I think it's just like I think people want to have a hot take, no matter good or bad. And I think at the end of the day, it's like a good album that I enjoy listening to. But it's not like I don't know if it's making any waves.
Yeah.
I guess it did make a wave though, but whatever.
True. Yeah, because like it kind of like was the initial wave and then it dropped off. Panic makes a good point. Sometimes terrible people make great art, and that's a big cope.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I also just kind of assume that like artists will just kind of be ridiculous in general, especially once they get to a certain level. Like I remember one of my friends was saying that they felt like they couldn't buy into Miyazaki's message of like all of like the wholesome like messages he has in so many of his films because he was such an asshole to like his son in real life.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's like, I don't agree with that way of looking at it because like I have no doubt in my mind that Miyazaki is like a massive asshole. Like I have no doubt. Like he's probably a huge tool. And I think
like he's probably a huge tool.
He's probably 100%. A huge tool.
I don't know 100%. The man, but I am absolutely certain he's just a tool.
Yeah. Like, but he's also like the biggest, creator in the anime industry of all time. Like historic.
Director. And you have to be a tool to be able to be on the top.
I think if you're going to get on that level, you probably have to be some sort of a tool. And like they were specifically mentioning how like apparently he was criticizing his son's work by saying like, oh, he didn't earn it. Like he didn't earn getting this, like, which sucks. Like, it's like,
well, he apparently didn't want his son to get into the animation industry. So okay. I don't know the exact reasons, but that's what I heard.
I wasn't sure if it was like he was saying his son's movie sucks or if he was just like,
yeah,
my son is here because of me. Like, I wasn't sure what he was saying, but like, either way, like, I'm sure being his son, like, I don't know about their relationship, but like, if my dad said that, I would be really upset. But like, I don't think whatever is going on in his personal life takes away from like the end result of what he's created and like the boundaries he's pushed for the industry, the history he's made, the like, the accomplishments, like all of that. Like, he's still like, you can't take that away from him. But I could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, well, what's strange is that like his son recently, Goro Miyazaki, he directed one of the recent Ghibli films, not hard G. I had to really confront this truth. Yeah, he made one of the last Ghibli films and it was like all like 3D and it was like panned by everyone and it looked creepy. It looked horrible. Everybody hated it. And it's one of the few, like only times that his dad complimented him on it. Said it was a great movie. Yeah, he like praised him. And I think his mom praised him too. And the son was like, yeah, this was weird. They never do this. So it's very strange. But yeah, like they've never praised me on any of this. So, because I think his mom apparently was like an ex-animator. So she was also like in the industry. But I was like, cool. Like they praised him for the film that everyone hated. Okay. I don't know what that means.
Love that for you. I don't know.
But go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I did actually finish watching a documentary on Miyazaki that was on HBO Max, and it was like an hour long, maybe 2 hours. It was called The Never Ending Man. He made it back in 2016. I think you've probably seen a lot of screenshots, quotes from this one, because it's like Miyazaki at his most morbid. And it's like the whole thing, like he's just complaining about aging and dying soon and his strength like leaving him. And he's like, what's the point? And also, by the way, it was shot really badly. It's like a really bad quality, like phone camera, like it was really bad. But and him kind of like not wanting to constantly work all the time, but just being like a very like bitter old man. And it just seemed, and it didn't also seem like it was completely just because of his age. It seemed like this is also just probably his personality.
Yeah.
Like complaining, but then getting through it. But like it's such a big like contrast from what he produces,
Yeah.
like his like wondrous, like beautiful, like worlds.
Especially aimed at like a kid audience, like,
Yeah,
filled with childish wonder and hope and like fantastical elements that are so like uplifting and colorful. And then in real life, he's like, I hate when it rains, like, wah.
yeah.
And I don't want to say like I'm pretty sure he's an unpleasant person in like a disrespectful way. I just kind of like anticipate some kind of disconnect because he pours so much of his
He's a
feelings into his
perfectionist.
art. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
So no disrespect to Miyazaki. This is supposed to be like like trying to understand Miyazaki, but still give him credit, even if like he might be a bit of a grouch and maybe
he's definitely a
out of
grouch.
pocket shit about his son. Yeah.
Definitely a grouch. I related to some aspects of him, but he's like definitely a grouch. And he's actually like, he was in retirement, but he's actually coming out of retirement because he wanted to work on that last film. And I found out he's been working on it since 2016 till now, and it's still not done. And he's projecting in 3 more years, and he's already past 80. And it's because they're hand animating all of it.
Oh my God.
He doesn't use computers.
Oh my God.
Or something to that extent. Because there was a scene in like in the documentary where they handed him like a Wacom like tablet, like with a pen and like,
he's
I
like,
don't know if you're familiar with those with the screen. And he was like, I don't know how to use these things. Like, and I was like, oh, this is telling. But that's why the movies are animated so well. They're hand animated.
I can see it. I could definitely see it.
Let's see. This was earlier on, but Silly Serpentine says, just joined. Is this about MHA, My Hero Academia fans? It seems like it'd be about My Hero Academia. You'd think that, but we actually have barely touched it.
Do you have any? I wanted to keep it in the family of like my own series, so it didn't seem like I was like dissing other fandoms. I also haven't been like super duper connected with the My Hero Academia situation in terms of like the anime and manga adaptations. Not really.
I mean,
like,
I dropped off the anime, so I don't have any grievances with it because I told you I have this thing of like once I bite the bullet and catch up to a manga, that's it for the anime. Like unless they're doing something like Jujutsu Kaisen animation phenomenal, like where everyone's like checking it out. I'm like, okay, I gotta see what's going on.
Well, that's what My Hero Academia used to be. That used to be known
now
for
it's just kind of like complaints that they're ruining it, and I'm actually hearing this from credible sources, and I'm like, okay. So, anyways, but with the manga, I'm kind of really good with everything that's going on. I'm actually very pleased that like a lot of what's happening now is stuff like I called in like a video like 2 years ago, and I'm just like, yes, it's all coming to fruition. Everything I said, all the non-believers, watch, this is it. So I don't know. Everything's like really good right now. So in terms of the manga, and I don't really have any complaints about the manga's execution in terms of the art and everything. So
the anime is good to me as long as the manga exists, kind of thing.
Yeah, like I don't have too many complaints because again, I'm like, anime is gonna have its issues, but at least the manga's delivering.
Yeah, and that's all. Sometimes that's all that matters.
But like, if I was like really banking on the adaptation, like, and kind of watching it, like similar to how you felt with Promised Neverland season 2. Sorry to bring it up again. I'd probably be mad. I'd probably be a little
that
mad.
one's like what gets me is that this isn't copium or hopium. This is just rage. Is that, I'll be out here being like, okay, the anime sucks for this. Check out the manga. And then people will be like, the source readers are always hating on the anime. They're all being like mean, like get off my lawn, grandpa tier. Like they're always critical of it. And that's not often the case because, sometimes it's good or it's bad, but like, then it's when people like don't really take your word for it because they just assume that like, you're just like off your shit because you're being critical of it. And like, luckily, like the Promised Neverland example is so extreme that like it gets the point across of like, do not watch this because it does not do anything justice. But I think there is sometimes the adaptation copium of, they'll get to it soon. They'll fix it. They know what they're doing.
Yeah. But I hear like what they're already doing is kind of ruining one of the arcs that they were most hyped for. So at that point, it's like, well, I don't know when they're gonna fix this.
Yeah,
that's when they'll call for the redo, or the remake of it, which isn't likely.
Yeah, exactly. What is it? I feel like people saying Brotherhood something is like whenever they're like, this series Brotherhood, that's a copium. Like, when will they redo it, but like right this time?
I mean, yeah, Brotherhood was actually one of those few instances where like they redid something like not too long after. So it was only like what, 6 years later? 6 years? No, 7 years.
A couple years, like a couple of years after it was done. That was weird. It was a good weird timing.
Julian in the chat says, from what I understand, this is I think about the Miyazaki, his son's movie.
Yeah, definitely.
The movie was actually not very good. Still out of pocket to say that about your, I think he meant son, about your son though.
Yeah. Would you, okay, if your kid makes like a really bad movie and someone asks you about it, like, are you saying it's bad or are you lying and saying it's good?
Like,
and you're Miyazaki and you're in his position. Like,
and my kid's not there? No, but my kid's gonna find out. I'm fucking Miyazaki. they put me in my line, like, will quote me in the press.
Like, quote my ass, it's ass.
I mean, I think like when it's tough, you know why? Because like when you're of that caliber, like world renowned, but like, I don't know, like I think like you have to kind of look at something with a critical lens, but he could have said it in a nicer way. He could have been like, I'm glad he tried.
Miyazaki is Jin in real life, where he's like, I'm anime's #1 director first and father second. Maybe that's too much speculation. That's way too much speculation. I'm not saying it's true, but what if it was like?
And what if like Goro was like gone and he was just like, yes, and that's why I respect him. He makes me want to be a director.
That might actually be it. Maybe this is getting too real. Getting too real. This is talk about parasocial relationships of just being like, these two were like the anime characters. Like, oh my god. That was bad.
Yeah. Reminder that Miyazaki rather takes out trash than watch the Demon Slayer movie.
Is that something he said? I could see him saying that. Like he would rather take out the trash than watch the Demon Slayer movie.
Maybe he said that.
I could see him saying it, but I can't imagine him saying something so overt.
I don't know. I was watching this documentary and he had like some guys that were showing him this 3D thing because he was skeptical about like 3D. And like they were telling him like, I don't know the exact, I don't remember too exact like what they were doing, but there was like these interns or like this company that was saying like, oh, in a few years, like we're working on like computers that can kind of replace like having an actual animator. They can do the animation itself. And they did this like weird like 3D looking monster thing that was like sliding on the ground or whatever. And Miyazaki just straight up called them out. And, like he was just like, this is just like an abomination to anime. Like, what are you doing? Like, I would never stand by this. And they're like, it's just a test. No. I would never stand. Like, he was just like grilling them hard. It was just so awkward. I was like, damn.
That's so funny. He's like, I hate this. I hate this. That's so funny.
Yeah. Like, he kind of like made it like awkward. Because he was just like, because he said like, it's hard to describe, but it was like this corpse kind of body thing, like sliding on the ground. It kind of looked like something out of Resident Evil or like a zombie, but like Miyazaki was like disgusted by it because like he said like, I have a friend in real life who I think he said like is crippled or has like some, he can't function as well as he could in real life. And like that, knowing like the struggle of the human body, like this isn't accurately portraying it, something like that.
Okay.
It just went off on
That's
them.
kind of wild if he's just like this weird thing like dragging on the ground. He's like, that reminds me of my friend and I feel bad for him. And
yeah, like this, because you know what it was? Okay, I don't want to misrepresent here, but I think it was something along the lines of like the way the thing was dragging as if it didn't feel pain. Like it was just kind of like not taking into account like pain. And like he's saying like, because with animation, you want to capture things like true to life. And it's like, well, if something were like this, it would feel pain. And you have to kind of showcase that in animation. And this is kind of like an affront to that or whatever. And I don't know.
Interesting. Okay. So it's like definitely like he has a lot of like reason to say a lot of this. Like a lot of like, he has a lot of like constructive criticism. It's not just like, fuck this 3D.
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was just the way he delivered it.
Respect.
Class Facts said he was asked by an interviewer what he thought of the Demon Slayer movie, and he said he didn't watch it and rather wants to take out his trash in his neighborhood. He does that a lot.
See, okay, so I don't feel too bad speculating that Miyazaki's probably a tool. Like, I don't feel too bad saying that.
He, like, walks around the whole day in an apron, so nothing wrong with that. He just always, I think he's ready to work.
Okay, this was kind of relevant this week. I was wondering what you thought of this. The Dune director.
Wait, is this a quote from that section I was talking about, class fact, that he said,
Did
I
he actually
strongly
say
believe
it?
that this is an insult to life itself. I feel like this is what he said.
Is it meme or like, oh, this is
Oh,
like life itself?
yeah. What were you saying? What was your question?
It's so funny. I was wondering if like, is that an actual quote or is that like anime is a mistake quote? You know?
Yeah, no, I think that might be an actual quote. Oh, so what were you asking about?
So did you see the thing where it was like the Dune, the movie that's coming out? The director said that essentially the MCU films kind of like copy paste themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like they keep doing that. Do you think that all of this, like, feels like once a month we get like acclaimed director commentating on the MCU as like a reoccurring thing? Like,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that these guys are like, do you think this is a form of copium of like people are upset that like these films that they seem to have that they think have no artistic value are being so successful and taking over cinema? Do you think their criticisms are a form of copium, or is it just kind of like a Miyazaki thing where they're like, would rather just take out the trash than watch the next MCU film kind of thing?
You know what? It might be more of a Miyazaki thing.
Yeah.
Because like I feel like they look at cinema as a craft. Like we
Yeah.
talked before about like the Scorsese example,
Yeah.
and it's like they kind of look at it that way. And the Marvel movies are just trying to be entertaining stories. They're just entertainment, so they're not really trying to really live up to like that, like the craft as much as just telling a good like popcorn sort of entertainment kind of film. And so I think it's that. Maybe it is a bit of copium. Maybe I can't speculate too much, but like
Yeah.
I just feel like it's hard for them to not criticize it because it's so like Marvel's like really pumping stuff out now, and they're just kind of
Yeah.
ever present with the Disney Plus
Yeah.
shows. They've got a movie that just came out now in September. They got one in November. They got one in December.
Yeah.
3 this fall/winter, and then they've got a bunch next year, a bunch the next year after. They drop dates for 2023 and 2024. It's like to the point where it's one thing ends, another thing begins.
Yeah.
So
it definitely is more. It does feel a bit more like factory like now, and I think it's a fair criticism, because I felt it kind of with like Captain Marvel, where I'm like, this feels like we kind of already had this with like both Iron Man and like Captain America. Like they felt very similar, but yeah, I wasn't sure because I feel like it's like once a year, or no, it's like once a month we get the same kind of criticism, which is ironically kind of feels like copy paste criticism for the MCU films every time.
yeah. Yeah, and I I get it from that angle, but at this point, like they're gonna end up forming like a monopoly on the market if they haven't already. So I guess like maybe they're starting to feel like now they're the minority group, and sort of like they kind of are speaking out against like giant corporation that's sort of like monopolizing the market in terms of the audiences, because they are like slowly taking all these big name actors and just kind of enveloping them into the Marvel cinematic universe. Like actors that you thought would like be like too good for that or never do that, or like now part of it, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
But so maybe they feel like, like it's like Marvel really has a lot of clout.
Yeah. I feel like it is kind of that thing where it's like coming for the big guy on top. And like, I think it's fair. Like, there's definitely some fair criticism for it, but I always find it's like, I think there's something finally weirdly jarring about saying, like, I haven't seen Dune and I don't know the Dune director that much, but when you're remaking a movie or book and you're saying the Marvel stuff is like copy paste of itself, when you're in the process of adapting something that could be seen as like a copy paste into a film, it gets a bit kind of like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I mean,
Spider-Man
like
point meme. Yeah.
I think they're just saying like Marvel doesn't put in any. I get what you're saying, but like they're trying to say like, oh, Marvel doesn't put in any effort while I'm taking this film, this book that was already created, but I'm actually putting an effort to adapt it, and do something different. I don't know, but do you think it's copium?
I think to a certain degree, at some point, it gets to be, because like I think it's fair to criticize the Marvel films. Like I think we've all been there, where like there are some good Marvel films and some not so good Marvel films, but like I think it's like people get a bit I don't know, they get in their bullshit a bit, where they're like, I am creating fine art and you are not creating fine art kind of thing. And like you could have you know, you could feel like one is art and one isn't. Like I think they just get a bit too much like, you know, if something is something bad because it's popular and mainstream, I don't think so. Like I think there's like a lot of like actually like creative stuff in the Marvel films. Not all of them, not every Marvel film, but like some of them do have a lot of like artistic merit and have accomplished a lot of interesting things that we haven't seen in other cinema. So I feel like it's a bit, I don't know. I feel like it's a bit detrimental. And I kind of wish that like, I don't know. I wish the conversation was a bit more of a conversation instead of like, here, let's come out with the hot quote from this interview on the Marvel films. But it's also kind of like, I don't know why we have to keep talking about the Marvel films as much, you know? Like, why is it just the Marvel films? There's so many other films that are also guilty of it. But to their defense, I just see it as like a tweet on Twitter. They might have had a full-length conversation, and naturally it's only like the headline. So I think it's just like the conversation as itself.
Yeah, I was about to say this, but Panic sort of said in the chat too. They've been on top of the movie industry for 15 years now. So it's like there isn't as much other stuff. It really is like Marvel. So it's them being ever present, but also having most of the stake in the movie industry. Like, you know, I actually barely hear about other movies as much as I just hear about a Marvel movie. Again, that's not true. Saying it's a bad thing. I've barely missed Marvel movies. I always go to watch them. You know, I never thought they were art. And, you know, I do think they're artistic things. I am proud of like certain ways they can mix it up and like deliver things differently or repackage them differently. But I'm pretty sure, you know, there's a formula, you know, there's definitely like,
and we've seen the formula happen in real time. I think it's just like, you know, I've seen some of the works from some of the directors who've been critical of Marvel films. And I know a lot of people consider all of their stuff higher art, but like sometimes I'll watch their stuff and I'm like, this was pretty okay. Like I watched it, it was fine, moved on.
Yeah.
So I think it's like sometimes their criticism could go, I mean, not the uncreative part, but sometimes it's just not as engaging or as thought provoking as like some people seem. But yeah, Panic has a good point that the Scorsese quote is mildly taken out of context and the actual article is super fascinating. Like I did read the whole article and he has a lot more to say. So it's not just like this stuff bad.
Yeah, I've read the article myself. It's really more, it's more nuanced. It's more, again, he's more bigger on the craft of it, cinema as he knew it, as opposed to just kind of like what it's becoming. You know, he's afraid that it's a dying art form and more of a commodified, you know, sort of form of just entertainment.
Which is super fair. Very fair.
Yeah, so in terms of copium with anime and kind of like, you know, sound arguments and extreme rationalizations, I think it just like, do you think it's like fair to like call people out on copium, you know, and just be like, oh, you're just coping? Because we all kind of do that to some extent, like as we've seen. We all have our own moments, but I guess it's only like detrimental when they're like kind of, you know, giving the author a bad name or giving the staff like a bad name.
I think it's only like bad. But it's only bad when I think, you know, like the people involved are like the authors and, or as you said, like the staff, like when they're getting death threats or they're getting like so much harassment that they're feeling something from the copium. Like I think Isayama said something like in his last author comment, it was like apologizing for not giving fans the ending he thought they wanted. Like he thought he was doing the right thing, but like it looks like he missed the mark. So like he definitely felt the wave of disappointment. And I don't think that's to say that you can't criticize the ending. But like knowing that he's listening, I can only imagine how he would feel if he heard about something like Attack on Titan Requiem with the tone that they take of like, we're fixing his mistake. This is the true ending. And I'm not against people making something like that in the first place, but like the insulting tone they're taking of, we are righting his wrong with this right ending. That tone to me, I think that's like copium taken way too far to the next degree of like assuming you know better than the author, assuming that like you're in a position of power, and then assuming that like you're doing the right thing when like you're not, you're just making fan fiction, which is also fair, but like don't insult the author in the process.
Yeah, because how do you think he feels? You know, like this is his baby. He's been working on it for years while you've been sitting back and enjoying it. And you know, and maybe he had a hard time like coming up with the ending, and it's just maybe it wasn't what he wanted, but he did his best, and it's kind of that's it, you know. I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, and it's like a weird. Sorry to interrupt. It's like a weird process of being like weird, like monkey in the middle of like I'm not necessarily like super thrilled with what Isayama wrote, but like I respect that's what he wrote. Sorry, microphone. And then like that's what he wrote. Like that's it. That's it. That's the actual ending. Versus like what these people are writing, which is like definitely a different take on it. And like some people are happier with that, but like you can tell that it's like a lot of that is like the primo Attack on Titan fan copium of what they wanted the ending to be, what they thought the message was, even though that was like never the message. Like there's a lot of stuff you can tell that was like this. It's kind of the culmination of the Attack on Titan copium. And it's interesting to kind of see that documented as like a lot of fans really thought this is what would happen. And that's what they wanted from the series. And I don't think that's the story that was being told, but it's weird. Kind of like, I'm not 100% happy with either of these.
Yeah.
So it's like a weird spot to be in, but.
And that's, I feel like, you know, sometimes fans might not be paying as careful attention as to what the story is that's being told, because you know, and that's why this happens. It's dissatisfaction. Although it does sound like, you know, I'm pretty sure you were paying attention and you still weren't satisfied. But some others, to more of an extreme, were expecting something like wildly different or some other payoff that was never like even foreshadowed. Maybe I don't know. Like I kind of kept seeing cases of that of My Hero Academia. Sorry to bring it up again. Like where people, you know, kind of thought like what they wanted out of the show was clearly never what the show was trying to do. But they were just like, well, why is it like this? Why does, you know, this kid cry so much? Or why does, you know, like, why, like they were just expecting something completely different when the show was never, you know, kind of saying it was going to do that. So, but that's the same thing again, when we talked about the shipping, like, and kind of expecting a ship that was never there and stuff like that. It's like, you kind of have to pay enough attention to know that, like,
to temper just your because, expectations.
Like, like expectations, like you might be expecting something, but just, you have to kind of check yourself to an extent to be like, how much of this expectation is grounded in like what I would prefer versus what's actually like going on? Because you might see a show, like the premise, and start imagining in your head like, oh, it would be cool if it went this way. And the show is not indicating that it would go that way, but you're already in your head like, no, but it would be cool if it went this way. And then it doesn't, and then you're pissed. You know,
exactly.
I mean, I kind of had a little bit of that with Ava 3.0 plus 1.0, but I knew I shouldn't feel that way because I knew it clearly was not telling me it was gonna like go that way. And I was like, but it would be cool if it did that.
What did you want it to go in? Did we talk? I feel like we didn't talk about what you actually wanted it to go in.
Well, we did.
I think it's in your video, right?
We talked about it, I think, to a certain extent. But like, there was like at one point in the second act of the film, and I'm not gonna like, for people that didn't watch it, I'm not gonna spoil it too much. So if you know, you know. But in the second act of the film, there was like at a point where I'm like, okay, I'm like counting the minutes, and I see like how much is left, and I'm just like, okay, I want there to be a very clear moment where they tie this all back together to all of the original endings. Like I want it to be like not even subtle. I want it to be on the nose, like these endings were all fucking connected.
And we kind of got some of that.
And we did on a, like to a subtle degree, but I wanted it like more overt. Like I wanted it to just be like I don't know, it's like some time travel, like back in time shit.
Yeah. Like it's,
and I knew it was like nonsensical, and I knew it wasn't gonna happen. But there's a little part of me like, but wouldn't that be cool?
There's a like JoJo part 4 kind of fan theory, that criticism for that too. Like I don't know if you've heard of that with like you know when they
the ending like with the ambulance or
no, it's kind of
oh no with Josuke
the like backstory thing.
Yeah.
And that's one where I could go either way on it, because I do feel like I wanted like, it seemed like with his backstory, I thought that would be kind of connected, and then like kind of came up with that theory of like how that would be connected with time travel later on. And then it didn't come through. And it's not necessarily like that didn't happen. It's just that something as interesting as that didn't happen. But like, that's something that like I could go either way on, because as some people point out, like, well, they never said it was going to happen, but I'm but they could have been hinting at it. I don't know. Like that gets a bit too much. So that might be some just grand old delusion. But
I mean, I was cool with either way. It still, fulfilled his backstory, although that like it fulfilled like his motivation as like a character and for why he did what he did, like what motivated to kind of act the way he did when he was older. But like
the idea,
I don't know, the theory did feel like a little bit of a leap when I heard it. But it's like kind of one of those cool like it's a leap, but it's cool enough that you're like it could happen and maybe
and it could happen in JoJo. JoJo could have.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that so many people had the same theory, like I had the theory before talking with people about the theory. Like when I was experiencing it, I thought, I'm like, yo, they might be like doing this. And then they didn't do it. And then I talked to some people about it and they're like, yeah, we thought the same thing. And I was like, it's not just me. We all thought it. We saw the lines. And then it didn't happen. Like,
and it's like one of those like little disappointments, but like, you want it to happen, but it doesn't really ruin the show. And you're kind of fine with what does happen. We got great days. That's all I needed.
Great days.
but
yeah, I think I think that's like that one gets a bit, I don't know. Maybe that's just expectations. Maybe that's where
that's really just expectations, which is maybe like a whole other topic. I don't know. It does play into copium a lot, actually. So
yeah, expectations are copium. Like copium equals reality minus expectations equals copium plus delusion equals copium.
Yeah. So I think we about covered it. I think we're gonna end it here. Because that's all we have to say about copium.
It's all the copium we have in store.
Yeah. So if you guys enjoyed it, let us know what you think about the podcast. Let us know in the comments if you have any other examples of copium, like some extreme copium for some other shows, fandoms, or even just extreme rationalizations, that we didn't mention. Just let us know in the chat. We'd be happy to see those. If you enjoyed the pod, give it a like. And if you have not subscribed already, feel free to subscribe. Help the channel grow. We're so close. We're inching so close, yet so far to 1,000. So we're on the road there. And besides that, we will be back next week with another topic. I don't know what that is yet, but I promise it'll be good. Or Shaw will promise that it'll be good. What was that?
I do not promise that.
I do not guarantee that. That's coming out of his mouth, not mine.
Before then, though, if you guys have been following, it hasn't been released yet. I think can we say it first? I feel like we can say it. So tune in to Replay Value's Twitch account next week. We'll link it. Like everyone will know. But me and Onimaru are showing up for Anime Jeopardy again. So mark the calendars. It's gonna be.
It's Shaw's what's your second time? Third time? Third time. Coming back to the ring. It is my first time, my debut, and then we're tag teaming to face off against, I guess, another tag team.
I think two other tag teams.
Yeah, two other tag teams.
To be determined who they are. Well, I think they know, but I don't want to spoil it yet. But I'll just say Saturday at 12 p.m. EST. That is 4 p.m. UTC. So it's it's less than a week. But it's going to be on Saturday on Replay Value's Twitch. We'll link it a bunch of times. But I mean, let's hope I don't ruin it for the team. That's all that counts.
I mean, I got to study. Shaw has faith in me. It's misplaced.
I have a lot of faith.
There is I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm going to have to do some research. And hopefully I don't let the team down. So we'll be doing that.
We're going to copium through it.
I'm going to copium through it. And it's going to be copium afterward. It's going to be like next day. We're just going to be like, that was rigged, Rigged.
The buzzer issues again.
Yeah.
My internet too much.
Yeah. So you can catch us on that one if you want to catch us before the pod next week. We'll definitely let you know. We'll link it. Good. And lastly, pineapple does go on pizza. This has been co-signed by Shaw because after all, we're just weebs.
After all, we have no taste buds.
All right. Should we do I think we answered everyone's questions.
Yeah.
Right, guys? All right. We're just going to wave. Bye, guys. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
See you later. See you next